and Pillar 2 initiatives to make the relaunch of the single market acceptable. And here there will be considerations of social policies, of industrial policy, of some tax cooperation, I choose my words carefully, and policies on the external dimension of the single market. Just to give two examples of objections to the single market that cannot be totally dismissed. One is the following. Okay, the single market is good, it enhances efficiency, it contributes to growth. But it cannot be unbalanced in terms of its policy architecture. If we have, as we want to have, more and more market integration, and there is no tax coordination at all, what happens? There will be unlimited tax competition among member states. Is that bad or good? I want to be clear. I'm not in favor of tax harmonization. That is not necessary and unrealistic, given the unanimity rule, among other things. Does that mean that any unlimited form of tax competition is good? I would be cautious on that. Why? Tax competition is good to the extent that it puts pressure on member states to discipline their budgets. So the political economy argument is there. The problem is that tax competition is not neutral between factors of production. Why? Because to benefit from tax competition, you have to move. You have to search for the most favorable location from the tax point of view. This already tells us that those tax bases which are most mobile, like capital, can benefit most. Other, and to some extent, companies, others tax bases, labor income, can move much less, at least until they take the rather radical decision to migrate. And we see, year after year in Europe, a decline in the rate of taxation on capital and an increase in the rate of taxation of labor. Obviously, this is exactly the opposite of what we need if we want to be serious when we say that Europe promotes job creation. Because we make the factor of production whose use we would like to make more abundant to create jobs more costly. If we take taxation on labor plus social security contributions. So this is just one example that this creates enemies to the single market. But we want to proceed with the single market and to make it deeper. Countries which have the single market in their blood also need to pragmatically consider how they can make their sound, I would say, instinct achievable in reality by disarming the oppositions. The other example that I would like to make is the following, which I have heard many times from France, from Germany, from business leaders in Europe who, on the other hand, are keen supporters of the single market. But they will tell you there must be something wrong with it because we have these rules about competition, about state aid control that we respect, we have to respect, and basically we are convinced that they are good. But there is a problem. Europe is becoming the only place in the world where there are principles of of market rules of this nature, and where these principles are seriously enforced. And here, in fact, there is a difference, because whereas in competition policy, in the sense of fighting against cartels or abuses of dominant positions or merger controls, more or less now each country in the world has it. And there is a growing coordination on which the European Commission has given a remarkable contribution. As regards state aid control, it's only in Europe that there is such control, which is natural enough, because state aid control is by definition a supranational activity of enforcement over rules that are over laws of financing this or that company or region, which are decided at the national level. So in the US there is no state aid control. The antitrust authority can fine companies, but cannot tell to the President of the US or to Congress, you have to repeal this law to support this company, which we can do in Europe and do it every day. So business has this anxiety. They feel sometimes constrained in their ability to compete in the world by the fact that they cannot be supported other than under very precise guidelines and with limits by their governments. What to do? Now, particularly now that there is this strong state capitalism on the part of China on one hand, and the newly found pragmatic paleo-socialism on the part of the US, if you think the quick way in which they jumped in the capital of automobile companies or banks in the wake of the crisis. So Europe faces a dilemma there, which is not a simple one, because in order to remove these obstacles to the competitiveness of these companies, the way to go would be to soften or to remove state aid control, to put them on a level playing field with their Chinese or American competitors. But by so doing, we would destroy the single market, because then each government in Europe would subsidize its companies, and the competitive level playing field within Europe would be destroyed. Also, with a very negative consequence on the very ability of European companies to compete worldwide, because the fact of having a solid, wide, domestic-based single market is a key ingredient of their competitiveness. So how do we go out of this? I think Europe should try to work more effectively towards gradually establishing in the international fora, as well as bilaterally, as it did now in the agreement with South Korea, principles broadly similar to the ones we have in Europe. For example, I would hope that next year, when France will exercise the presidency of the G20, they might wish that to be fully in line of their vision of a stronger Europe externally. They might wish to start working in that direction. So, if we want to advocate the deepening, the extension of the single market, this is my belief, we cannot naively behave as if the objections were not there, or if they were totally and easily dismissed. We need to take something on board of these objections and see how the objections can be reduced.